All right. The Catholics and the Protestants. So there are three major differences between the Catholics and the Protestants. Okay. So the Catholics have three basic ideas, right? There's orthodoxy, there's hierarchy, and there's justification by works. All right? So the idea is, hey, if you want to go to heaven, just obey the Catholic Church, what the priest tells you. Don't think, just do what the priest tells you to do. Really simple, right? Okay, but there are three problems with all this, okay? The first problem is God becomes distant from you, okay? You're not allowed to communicate with God. And as I keep on saying in this class, we humans are first and foremost religious. We want to be spiritual. We want to have communion with God. But the Catholic Church says, no, you have to just obey us, okay? You have to obey our dogma, even though our dogma doesn't really make much sense, okay? The idea of hierarchy, of course, leads to corruption, where the priests can do whatever they want because they're in power, okay? And they become extremely wealthy and powerful. And the third problem, justification by works, is it leads to hypocrisy. You can be the worst person in the world, but hey, as long as you give enough money to the Catholic Church, you go to heaven, guys, okay? All right? So that's why the Protestants hated the Catholic Church. And so they proposed a new system. All right? The new system is, first of all, direct access. You don't have to go through the priest anymore. You don't have to listen to the dogma of the church. You can just actually communicate with the God directly through the Bible. Okay? Second idea is egalitarian, where there is no longer any hierarchy. You can communicate with God directly. Okay? And the third idea is justification by faith. The problem, though, of course, is that these three solutions to the Catholic problem will create more problems. Okay? The first is the idea of direct access. So you can access God directly. The problem is that Christians believe in the Holy Trinity. Okay, the Holy Trinity, right? God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are different but the same. Okay? Separate but co-equal. It makes no sense whatsoever. And as such, if you're trying to access yourself, you can't do it because this precludes you, okay? It is impossible for you to insert yourself into the story of the Holy Trinity. If it was just Jesus, you could talk to Jesus, but how do you talk to Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit at the same time? You can't do it, okay? So this causes confusion, okay? Second problem is the idea of egalitarian. This causes just so much chaos, debate and chaos, right? Because now, hey, if I want to, I can start my own religion. I don't need to get people to agree with me. I need to start my own religion and have followers follow me, okay? So this causes a lot of debate within the Protestant religion. It still happens today where among the Protestants, there are like thousands and thousands of different branches, okay? The last problem is most problematic, justification by faith. This creates anxiety, right? Because if you don't really know God because of the Holy Trinity, how do you know you really believe in God? Right? The Catholics believe that all you do is give some money, do some good work, don't sin, and you go to heaven. But the Protestants believe that, no, you have to really believe in God in order to go to heaven. Okay? What's even worse is that another reformer named John Calvin, he proposed the idea of double predestination. Because the Catholic Church says, you know what? Only we can decide who goes to heaven, so if you disobey us, you'll burn in hell. And John Calvin, to respond to this, says, no, no, no. The Catholic Church has no power over anyone because God, at the beginning of time, has already decided who will go to heaven and who will go to hell, okay? Double predestination. It's already been decided, guys. And how do you know? Well, the solution is through energy, right? If you work hard and you make a lot of money, you become very wealthy, then you know that God favors you. But after you become very wealthy, what's really important is for you to understand you can't spend any of this money because you can't sin. Okay? So you can only invest the money. All right? As you can understand, the merchant oligarchies love this because now they're taking people's money and they're able to invest it in any way they want. It's all going to the bank. Okay, and this is the Dutch Republic. This creates the Dutch Republic, which becomes the wealthy society in Europe at this time, in the 17th century. Okay? By the time you go from England to America, okay, England is also Protestant. The Protestant Reformation is going to change to the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment is, there may be a God, but God doesn't really interfere in the universe. God lets us do whatever we want. Okay, so it's up to us to create our own world. So now that God has left, what happens is you need something to replace the God, right? This becomes money, okay? Money as God. And this works because if you insert money into the Protestant faith, it solves a lot of problems. It solves a problem of anxiety because how do you know you go to heaven? If you become very wealthy, okay? And everyone, how do you know you're favored by God? Whoever becomes the wealthiest, okay? So money becomes the new religion of America. And this is what ultimately leads to the triumph of transnational capitalism, okay? All right. Okay, so how do we get from the Dutch Republic to England? Okay, the answer is very simple. The problem is that the Dutch Republic, it is on the continent of Europe. Therefore, it's very easy to invade. Now you have a problem, like how do you keep your money safe from invaders, okay? Because they have a lot of gold. And so what they will do is they will take this money and in 1688, they will transfer most of this money to England, okay? So how does England convince the Dutch to invest in England? Well, first thing is they make a Dutch aristocrat, William of Orange, the king of England, okay? All right? 1688, England invites William of Orange to become the king of England. That's number one. Number two is the Bank of England is set up in 1694. What makes the Bank of England special is that it is a private bank that is guaranteed by Parliament. Okay, does that make sense, guys? What this means is this. What this means is that if I make a lot of money, I keep it. But if I lose my money, the people will ensure that I get it back. Okay? Now what's going to happen is the Bank of England will lend money to England to fight wars. Remember, the Bank of England, what it is, it's transnational capital. So it's private interest, but anyone can invest it, including the Dutch Republic, including, guess what? The Catholic Church. Okay? And the third thing is secret societies. So what's going to happen is that secret societies are going to create these linkages among these different transnational capital groups in order to allow them to work together, okay? All right? So does it make sense? And what's really important is this system will transfer over to America, creating a system that we have today. The Bank of England becomes the Federal Reserve. Secret societies transfer over. These are the Freemasons, okay? All right? Does it make sense, guys? And this is why we have the system that we have today. The thing that you need to understand about the Federal Reserve is the Federal Reserve was set up in like 1913 or 14, I can't remember, okay? But the Federal Reserve, what they can do is print money. It's a private bank. It's private interest. They print money, and the government, how's it going to spend money? It borrows from the Federal Reserve at interest. Okay, so the people are borrowing from the bankers. And so that's why America is controlled by private interests. Right? Clear? And that's why transnational capital controls America and the world. Any questions? All right, so let's go over the PPT, okay? All right, so Venice. What makes Venice special is after Rome collapses, the Roman Empire collapses, right? These noble families, they're now impoverished. They go to different places. The city that becomes dominant in the Italian peninsula is actually Venice. Why? Because it's surrounded by marshes. So it's hard to invade. And you don't actually want to invade it because it has no resources. Its only advantage is that it's by the coast, which allows it to engage in piracy, as well as trade and diplomacy, okay? All right, so this is Venice today. And as you can see, it would be very hard to invade. Also, remember at this time, it's very poor, so no one wants to invade it. All right, another picture. Pretty beautiful, right? You guys should go before it sinks, okay? If you want to go visit Venice, do it now before it sinks. All right, so again, Venice, it's a merchant oligarchy, just like the Dutch Republic, just like England, just like America, okay? It seems like a democracy. They call themselves a republic, but it's actually controlled by private interests, okay? All right, so because Venice has no resources, it has to engage in trade. And it's going to help set up a lot of trade networks throughout the Middle Ages. And what it's going to do that's very profitable is that it's going to import spices from East Asia back to Europe, okay? And this is going to make Venice very, very wealthy. So the two big cities are Genoa and Venice, okay? And as you can see, they are extremely energetic. They're going to set up trade networks throughout the world. This is a spice trade, and the center, of course, is in Venice. And this makes Venice the most wealthy city in Europe at some point. Okay, also remember what these small city-states do that's very effective is that they become parasites on the empire. Okay, so Venice can take its wealth and bribe imperial bureaucrats in Constantinople to give it trade preferences. Okay? And Venice will also set up alliances with also the Islamic Empire as well as the Mongols as well. Guess who is from Venice? Marco Polo is from Venice, okay? Why is Marco Polo traveling around the world? To set up new linkages for Venice. Okay? So you got all these Venetians going around the world to be spies and to explore in order to set up new networks for Venice. Because they don't have really a choice in the matter. They are a trading power. They don't have any resources on their own, so the people have to be very energetic. Okay? And while this is happening, they set up these banks where the wealthy merchants can pool their resources to take more risks. Okay? Eventually, what will happen is that Venice will decline and the Dutch Republic will emerge. What makes the Dutch Republic so powerful is that it's ruled by merchants who have now adopted Calvinism. Okay? Remember, Calvinism is the faith that wealth is signals that you will go to heaven. So everyone in the Dutch Republic works really, really hard. It's a very energetic society, and they can now feed off the Spanish Empire, okay, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the Habsburgs. Why? Because the Spanish Empire, what they've done is they've gone to South America and captured a lot of gold, and it makes their people very lazy. Okay, so there are three ways in which you can take advantage of that. The first, of course, is piracy, where your ships just steal the gold as this gold is heading back to Spain. Another is just by providing industry for these people. These people don't want to work, so you just sell them clothes, okay? And this builds up the industry of France, Britain, and the Dutch Republic. The last way, of course, is probably luxury goods, especially spices, to the market. So because the Spanish Empire is so wealthy, this wealth transfers to the energy industry of the Dutch Republic. Okay? And as you can see, this is what the trade looks like. The Dutch will set up a private company called the Dutch East Indies Company, which is almost like a nation unto itself. It becomes the world's wealthiest corporation even today. Okay? And the reason why it is a monopoly over the spice trade from the East Indies. It has its own army, it has its own currency, it has its own government. Okay? It can enact its own laws in the regions it controls. All right. And as you can see, the Dutch are very energetic. So as a comparison, let's compare it to the Spanish Empire, okay? So at this point in history, the Spanish Empire is the wealthiest, most largest empire in the world. But as you can see, the Dutch are much more energetic, okay? The Dutch are much more industrious. And the British are actually much more industrious as well, okay? The reason why is the Spanish are still Catholic, whereas the Dutch Republic have turned into Protestants. Okay, and this allows for the growth of the middle class, because as long as you're willing to work hard, you can become wealthy. Whereas the Spanish, it's very much a society based on nobility and clerical privilege. Okay? All right. So as we discussed, the two leaders of the Protestant Reformation are Martin Luther, who proposed justification by faith. Okay, justification by faith. You have to actually believe in God if you want to access heaven. And John Calvin, who proposed the idea of double predestination, which means that God has already decided who's going to hell, who's going to heaven, and therefore you have to prove it to yourself by working really hard, making a lot of money, and not spending it, okay? And then all this money goes to the bank, which allows for the growth of the Dutch Republic.